He is a 6-time Bassmaster winner, an 18-time Classic qualifier, a former Angler of the Year, former Forest Wood Cup champion, over $3 million in earnings. None other than the freaking Hack Attack. Greg Hackney joins me this week on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course you, my humpers. Welcome in here, and happy hump day to all of you. Welcome into the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. This is the 185th edition of the Mercer Podcast, and I hope you're having a wonderful week. It is a wonderful week for all of those that are into ghouls and goblins and everything Halloween. So happy Halloween to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful Halloween. And if you're not into ghouls and goblins, maybe you're into little tiny chocolate bars. Enjoy those. It's a fun time of year. I had a lot of fun this past week. I was in Florida for the Yamaha Bassmaster Redfish Cup Championship in Apalachicola, Florida. I'd never been to Apalachicola, Florida. It's a fun thing to say. Took me a while to figure out how to say Apalachicola, and now I just really enjoy saying it. So it's just a cool part of Florida, really. I mean, you think you've seen all of Florida, but it just has such a vast, kind of untapped Florida. It's just a very cool part of the world. So I had a lot of fun there. Enjoyed seeing everybody there. Thank you for all those that came out. Thank you for new friends, old friends that I got to meet there. Once again, my producer, Michael Middleton, knows that I'll do any stupid thing that he challenges me to do while I'm on camera. Off camera, I won't, but on camera, I will jump in the ocean on cue. I got to be honest, though, if you saw the jump in the ocean, it wasn't my finest moment. I called that jump the manatee. I don't know who jumps backwards, but thankfully it was deeper than maybe it had looked. And then I just kind of paddled myself around like a manatee. But the water was wonderful. A lot of people thought it might have been cold, but that being said, I was swimming in I didn't think it was cold. I told everyone I don't think it was cold, but then I remembered I was swimming in the St. Lawrence River a few days before that, and it was 55 degrees, so maybe I'm not the best judge of the heat of water. Speaking of which, we're trying to hammer this out because we got another shoot window, and I'm going to sneak off. I thought last week was the last time I get to swim with the fishes for this year, but I'm going to try sneak in another one here. So I'm shooting this show early so that you guys got something. A fun show, a amazing guest. It goes in a lot of weird directions, like often does on this show, but it is our spooktacular. So what would you expect any different? But this is a big week in fishing. Lots of big things potentially happening. Maybe already happened, but not at the time of recording. So I'm not addressing them, but we will address them if said things happen. If nothing happens, then hey, and nothing happened. But I believe there's some relatively earth-shattering news. And it ain't what I'm dressing for Halloween. It is, well, I've already said too much. But let me divert from that. We will talk about that in a future show. Let's jump right into this show with Greg Hackney. And first of all, I got to commend him. I mean, incredible shoulder muscles. A lot of our guests, they don't believe in spending the $15 it takes to buy a cell phone holder. So they'll prop it up against a plain old box and a spool of line. Not Hackney. Hackney holds this the whole time. I mean, and it gets shaky, and there is times where he looks like Wilson from Home Improvement. You only see this much of him, but it's Hackney. I mean, I'll take whatever I can get, and this is a fun conversation. So without further ado, the Hack Attack himself, Greg Hackney. Greg Hackney, it is Halloween this week, so I guess this would be our Halloween special. Welcome.
Spooky times we're living in right now, Dave.
That's a good way to put things. Are you a big Halloween guy?
I do love this season. Now, so I'll be honest with you, I love Halloween, and I've done my share of trick or treating, this time of the year. But it's what's crazy is my wife. If there could only be one holiday, it would be Halloween. Like,
really?
Oh yeah, like she would like to decorate. Like most people decorate for Christmas, she likes to decorate for Halloween. She loves Halloween. It's crazy. I just love all holidays because I just like to fool around and find out. You know what I mean?
I hear you. What does she like about it? Like, is it just, I mean, my wife loves it too, but she's living in a bit of a bad situation because we moved to this wonderful house that we love to live in that we moved to 5 years ago. And we went from like a subdivision where we had a lot of kids to nobody comes to our house. Like, dude, she buys bigger chocolates every damn year trying to lure them in. Nobody comes to our house. So she's kind of bummed about it. What is it that your wife loves about Halloween?
She loves to dress up. They just went like a couple days ago. They just had this big deal in St. Francisville, the Witches Ride. They had 800 witches showed up for the thing. Went to that deal, and I don't know. She loves to dress up. The whole, I don't know.
Wow. I don't know whether I'm more impressed by that or impressed by the fact that, are you going to hold this cell phone the entire conversation?
I'm not holding it. I have a midget here holding it for me.
I was very shaky when you talk. Can you even say that anymore, Greg?
Oh, I'm sorry. Little person. It makes the little person nervous when I talk.
Here's what I find weird about that. I mean, if I was better at my job, I'd just skim past it. But I don't know. But if I were a little person, I think I would find that more offensive of a term than midget. I mean, like, doesn't it seem?
Forever, I didn't know midget was. But, here's the deal. When I was growing up, I would say retard. And you can't say that now. I found that out recently.
Yeah. Unless you're Matt Robertson. He drops them a lot.
Well, I guess you can wear it.
What was your favorite Halloween costume growing up?
A couple years ago, I went as a pimp. I kind of enjoyed that.
Pimping ain't easy.
Pimping ain't easy. I've been a trucker, which I've done that for real. So I try to get my kids to dress up as bass fishermen. I have tried to do that my entire fishing career. I'm like, just wear a jerk, you can. So Sarah's going to a Halloween party, Halloween night, and she's going as a boxer of all things. But I think that's her and a couple of her friends doing this. And I was like, why don't you wear your Hackney jersey and go as a bass fisherman? I'm not doing that. I was like, is that not cool? It seems cool.
Super cool, I think. I mean, friggin' Hack Attack. I mean, what's better than that?
So probably like out of my kids, Luke was little and he went as a UPS driver, carried a box around. He had a UPS driver. That all my kids have always liked to dress up and do all that stuff.
Doesn't that perfectly explain life, though? Like, you have a very unique job, obviously. I mean, you go to Halloween parties, Christmas parties, and tell people I'm a professional angler, and people are like, whoa, what is that a real life job? Like, it's a very unique job. But because you have that, your child dresses as a UPS driver. I just wish my daddy was normal. When I was growing up, we had two costumes. Like in our house, you were one of two things. You were a clown because, we had a wig and that was easy, I think, or you were, and I don't even know if you can be this anymore, but a hobo, a homeless person. People don't seem to dress as that, where we would just put like Vaseline on your face, and then my mother would take a tea bag and shake the tea on the It was incredibly itchy, but that's what we dressed as every Halloween.
So, just not to change the subject, do y'all have a lot of homeless people in your area?
At Halloween, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, not in my little town that I live in, but in Toronto and stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of homeless people. It amazes me. I'm like, if I was homeless, I'd get the hell out of Canada. I would go to the like. If you're gonna be homeless in Florida, California. Like, it just seems there's a lot more hospitable environments.
Yeah, we have a lot of homeless people, but we have a more conducive climate, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know about spending the winter outside in Toronto. I'm thinking it's a rough one.
Oh, it's horrible. Really, it is. I mean, when you sleep over a subway grate for the heat, like that is, I feel for those people, but I agree with you.
But I'm like you, there ought to be a homeless migration south where it's a tad bit warmer.
You would think. So you're not going to any Halloween parties?
I'm gonna drop Sarah off at that one, but that's it. I'm actually getting ready to go on a little deer hunt in Illinois next week. It'll be my first hunt of the year, so I'm really prepping for that. I mean, like, here's another deal. I got invited to go to the Whiskey Myers concert in Baton Rouge Wednesday night, and I really can't. I'm like, Julie's flying to North Carolina to a vet conference, and I'm gonna be home with Sarah babysitting. Of course, she's taking care of me. I don't really have to take care of
it. Do you get more excited for the start of the season or for this, your first hunt of the season?
You know, typically by this time I've made 60 sets. But like I said, this fall I've just been taking care of the things that I had been off because I've been hunting a lot. But I'm definitely looking forward to the first hunt of the year. But I will be honest with you about that. I enjoy my off time in doing other stuff and like mentally getting away from tournament fishing and just fishing in general. And because I think it would, like, if I fished all winter a lot, I don't think I would be as ready to get started when the season starts. It's almost like hunting season to me because I've not hunted since, last January. So I'm looking forward to it. So, and I think that's the way fishing is. Like, once our season ends and the season's over and I'll get to doing other stuff, I think it's a good recharge for me.
Yeah.
If I don't fish for a couple months, I'm not going to forget how to bass fish. But what it does is mentally, it just completely clears my mind of all of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And January the 1st, it hits me every year. That's when the fishing bug hits. About January 1st, I'm like, I need to get my boat, need to get my tackle grip. You know what I mean? Like, that's, and of course, where I live at, we have a great climate in January. It's good fishing. I mean, the fish are pre-spawn. Some of them may even be spawning, depending on the winter. And so it's good. And I start back fishing in January. And then when we start in February, I'm ready to go. But I enjoy taking off realistically October, November, December, and not making a cast. I do not miss it.
I think it's natural. I mean, I think you don't fish normal. First of all, before we get into that, I'm not high maintenance, but I have to ask you, just tilt your phone a little bit. You're starting to look like Wilson from Home Improvements. You know, the dude that you only saw over the fence. There you go. Either stay like that or give me your full face. But I think it's natural, because you don't fish normal. Like, how often do you actually get to go fishing where there's zero pressure? And I don't mean just tournaments. You're either tournament, you're pre-fishing, you're taking a sponsor out, you're shooting a sponsor show, you're brushing up on stuff that you feel you need to get stronger at. But it's not like fishing for most people, I would imagine.
So, the only thing that I find when I do just go fun fishing, because I do still enjoy to fish, like just go fishing. But because I'm so tournament minded, what I find is that once I go fish, like if I just show up at a lake somewhere, river, whatever, and go fishing, when it clicks, I feel like I fulfilled the day. If that makes sense. Like when I figure them out, like then I'm like, I can go home now. Like that's kind of the way it is. Or it has to be to the point where I either want to go fishing where I can set the hook every 3 minutes. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to fish, I want to catch. Like, but yeah, I think that's the tournament. Like before you would figure them out. I just want to see how many of them I can catch.
Yeah.
But more about once you click, you're like, oh, this is the deal. And once you figure out the deal, then I feel like I've accomplished what I needed to do today.
How do you know when it clicks? Do you just know?
Oh, you just know. Well, you're like, oh, light bulb goes off. You know what I mean? When you trick one, and then you're like, well, the next one will be right there, and the next one will be right there. Yeah, that's probably the only thing that I hate to see about the way fishing's going, because a lot of that is you don't see that as much. You know what I mean? Like that when that light bulb goes off.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the part that I hope for me personally I never lose, because that's what does it for me. You know what I mean? Like when you go out there and it's a place you've not been before, and you got ideas in your head that are swirling around, and you catch one, and then you're like, I kind of, everything, the angles, everything lines up, and you catch another one, and you run with it.
Yeah. And
your head. Does that make sense? Like, so my advantage fishing has always been the same thing. Is I have a tendency to be able to go to a place I've never been before and figure things out pretty quick. And it's not because I'm a better caster or any of that. It's just it's basically your fishing IQ. You know what I mean? Like and that's always been an advantage I've had. And so I don't think I will ever do anything fishing to lose that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that I've used all the new electronics the last couple of years, just like everybody else has, but I will never be able to depend on it to a point where I lose that.
Yeah.
Because fishing for me personally is a thinking man sport. And so I'll have to push the new technology away to some point, just not to lose that. I know there's been a couple events like this year where I just went out there and just stared at the screen the whole time. And like I said, like when you're doing it, it's fun. I mean, it is what it is. But what I find is when I'm doing that, like mentally, I can't even think. Like you don't even think. You don't have time to think for one reason. Because one reason is you're so locked on watching to make sure you don't miss anything. You can't really think about anything. Does that make sense? I know you've done it, Dave. You've been using it. You know what I mean? Like, so that point of it, that when you do that, it's not that you're mindless, but it's a totally different mind deal from the other,
Yeah.
So I just never be able to do it to the point where it would eliminate the other, or make me rusty. That's the other deal. It's one of the reasons that this year I chose to fish a lot and do the other, maybe 75-25, if that makes sense. Because I'm like, dude, I can't. My advantage has always been my mind, and I'm like, I don't want to lose that doing the other. And I do notice when I'm doing the other, I don't think about anything. You stand there and hold whatever you got in your hand, and you just stare and you fire. You know what I mean? Like you work on your casting, being able to judge distance, but you don't think. You're not worried about why that fish was there. You just try to take to him. You know what I mean? That's the important part of that deal. But
it's like working on a math problem. I mean, when you're saying that, I'm just trying to put it in other terms. But if you sit on a piece of paper and work out a math problem, you're thinking your whole way through. Right. Plus this, minus this, times this. You're thinking that. But if you pick up a calculator, you don't think. Like, you don't care how it got the answer. You don't think about the answer anymore. You just put in the equation and get the answer. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter if you think, I think that should have been done different. No, the answer's right in front of you. So I get it. I think it works in everything.
Yeah, you're getting to basically you're just working two different ways to get to the same ending.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Is one easier than the other? Yeah, I would say it is to some extent, but they both have their place. You know what I mean? Like we know that with the new tech, it's not going anywhere. We just don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
We've not seen the end result, or we've not seen the final. I mean, because that is one thing about just our world in general. We're always coming out with something to make our jobs easier, whether it's the cell phone that you're in Canada and I'm in Louisiana, and here we are having a face-to-face conversation live. You know what I mean? Like, so we're always working on things to make our life easier. So, I mean, honestly, one of these days, think about this. So I posted a video when we were at the Classic. I stayed at a house that had an ancient Lowrance flasher. It had an X85, X85 actually, and then of my new units, my HDS Live 12s, and just how like that Lowrance flasher in the day was like having my active target now. You know what I mean?
Coolest thing ever.
Yeah. So just over the time, over however many years that's been, just think where it will be over the next period of time. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, basically, it might even be to the point in like the next 30 years of where it's like me looking at the screen. Like the way I can see you is the way I'll be able to see, I'll be like, well, there's a smallmouth. There's a largemouth. Not only will it be able to tell if it's a bass or not, but it'll tell what species. And it says on the screen, he weighs 2.6 pounds.
Inside his stomach, we're seeing the contents. He's last eaten a crawfish.
Yeah.
Chad.
We can get an x-ray of him.
Because, like, you brought up this, a video call. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but 25 years ago, this call is as far-fetched as what you're pitching in graphs. Like, literally, this was, I mean, to our younger viewers, the Flintstones was a show, and there was the Jetsons from the Flintstones, and they talked about literally everything that they video calls, all we're missing is a flying car now. That is the last thing from the Jetsons that hasn't actually happened.
And we may not be far off of that. I mean, cars, it's so crazy. Like just here in my area, the cyber trucks, like here, like literally like 6 months ago, I see the first one. Okay. Now there's a lot of Teslas out there. The cars, I've been seeing a lot of electric cars, whatever, but now they're like everywhere. There's one in my neighborhood. I'm like, they're just, I'm every day I go out, I see one,
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like
it's wild. It's a wild time. They had locally here, there was a bus that operated itself, and not long after it came into existence, it hit a pole, and people were like, see, I told you. And the best part of the story, I mean, this isn't a good part, but it turned out it was a maintenance dude that like you can put it in override and drive it yourself. And it was going in for maintenance, and the maintenance dude was drinking and he hit a pole. So, or they made that story up. One of two things happened. But it's a crazy time. It is crazy that way. You were talking about instinct, I guess. I guess that's what we classified, that feeling like knowing it clicks, like that. Just is that God-given? Like, did you always have that? Like, were you?
Yeah. So honestly, I do think that is like, I don't think you can teach that. And here's the deal.
You can hone it.
I fished so long, like over a long period of time, and I've just fished around a lot of great fishermen and good fishermen. And I see the guys, even like in the current group we got now, they're a little harder to read because of the technology. But man, so the other night at the Hall of Fame dinner, I'll be honest with you, like all those blue coats that were there, like those guys, most all of them are naturally gifted.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that anybody like fisherman wise, like all the ones that have made the Hall of Fame that were tournament anglers were all naturally gifted. And they were hard workers too. You know what I mean? Like not, but I've noticed that with like in the past 20 plus whatever years I fished, that I can tell the difference in the naturally gifted guys and the guys that are hard workers. I hate to say it, the hard workers will have a lot more peaks and valleys. You know what I mean? Like a lot more ups and downs, where the natural guys seem to just get, their bad times are never as bad as the hard workers' bad times. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You see the hard workers just completely go away. Like they have, like, but those guys that are naturally gifted, they just always seem to scratch and paw their way, through the rough times. It's different. You can't teach that. Now, will that change as our sport goes forward? You know what I mean? Like, but you've seen that in all sports. Naturally gifted athletes are all the ones that are at the top, at the very, very top. Does that make sense? Yeah, they're hard workers. But they naturally have an ability that you can't teach. They can jump higher, they can run faster, whatever it may be. And then they're hard workers on top of that. And that's what put them at the top of the game. And the hard workers will always be there, but they never seem to trump those guys day in and day out.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I tell my kids, I'm like, which I'm thinking, and I tell my kids kind of the opposite of that. But I agree with you that I think most of those guys with the Blue Jackets had both those traits. Very few of them. Yeah, like I don't know any of them that you're like, yeah, but he used to show up at at pre-fish at noon. Like there was none of that. But like you look in life, and you've got people who are talented, but to me, the key in life is to be a hard worker and to be decent to work with, because talent, and it's different when you're looking at an individual sport like fishing. You're just looking at result based. But I mean,
that's the only thing I'm talking about is just the results. And like watching these guys over long periods of time and watching how they, you know what I mean? It just seemed like those guys, when they get to the lake, they figure it out quicker. Now, again, fishing has changed a lot. And I can't read the new group as much. You know what I mean? Case in point, Jordan Lee. Okay. Naturally gifted.
Yeah.
Now, he's a hard worker too now, and I'm not taking anything from him on the hard working part. He's working as hard as anybody out there, and then you put that natural ability on top of it. It's the reason people like that excel. And that's like that in anything you do. You see people do that in business. You can have 3 business owners, and they're all super hard workers, but there'll be one guy that just, like, things just come easier. I don't know how to explain it. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that's unexplainable, but it's just, I'm not telling you don't work hard. I'm just saying that the cream of the crop, it has some of both. And what I've noticed that you'll see, it'll be really interesting with the rookie group that we've had from this year, how their careers go over a period of time. That's the other way to tell. I see a lot of fast horses come out the gate. But the sport of professional bass fishing is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It doesn't just blow out. You know what I mean? You don't get a restart. It just keeps on going and going for as long as you want it to go, basically. We just saw that with Clun recently. He set a record that no one will ever break. He's setting several records that probably no one will ever break. But him fishing as long as he has is just unbelievable. It's incredible that physically he's been able to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not just, he loves to fish and wanted to do it. Just physically being able to do it for that long is wild.
It's funny because I agree with you. I think Clun is the king. I mean, it's incredible what he's done. One of the coolest people on earth, literally, and so many, and getting cooler seemingly getting cooler as he ages, if you ask me, which is the exact opposite that most people experience. And I do agree that that'll probably never be beaten. But if you look at it now, you're also like, well, Clun didn't start till he was 27. So you look at guys starting at 19 and stuff. I mean, it could be beaten. Like, they don't have to fish until they're 78. They can fish till they're 68.
Yeah, I don't really foresee that happening because our sport is evolving. Like, if you go back and look, even from like the year, like, so my rookie season was 2004, and look at the average age of the top guys. Well, that's fallen 15 or 20 years now. If you look at the average age of this past year of the top guys, does that make sense? And I just think that our sport has evolved. Well, I don't know. Our sport is still young. So what are we, 52?
Yeah.
Right. So the sport's 52 years old, but it's evolving. And I think as it goes forward, the average age of our players will get younger and younger, and will start to get more like traditional sports. So, I watch a lot of UFC. I'm a big fan of that. I don't know why. I just always have been. And man, when a guy gets to be 38, I mean, he's ancient. You know what I mean? And you'll see, 40 or 45. I mean, and it might get to the point where those guys can't compete. I don't know. Our sport is changing so fast in the last few years that it seems like it's speeding that process up. But it's going to a younger generation. I mean, I just think it's like, so I started late too, much like Clun, 26 or 27, I can't remember, but you'll see more 17, 18, 19-year-olds, rookies on the elites. If you look at the 10 that we got from last year, or 9, and the 9 that we're getting in the new group, look at their ages. They're pups.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's technology, but it's not because of the depth finder technology. It's because of this cell phone. It's because of YouTube. It's because of Bassmaster Live. These children now have things at their fingertips that, I had a Bassmaster magazine, and literally now I would read that sucker from front to back and maybe back again. You know what I mean? Several times. And that was my source of information. And occasionally I went over to a buddy's house that had cable, and he had the Bassmasters on TuneIn, and I watched some of that. And I was learning everything, or the majority of what I've learned as a bass fisherman has been on the water. So the growth it's slower growth when you only way to learn is to go out there and apply it on the water. But if I can watch you do it, I can watch you smallmouth fish and never smallmouth fish before in my life, and drive to Canada and catch smallmouth.
Yeah.
I can watch 1,000. By the time I drive that 1,000 miles up there, I can watch all these YouTube videos, anything I want to know about smallmouth fishing. Okay. So the first time I went smallmouth fishing, it's what I read in the Bassmaster. And I just went up there and went, oh, wow. There's all big, giant, open water. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the thing that is, is getting our group back younger, which is great. You know what I mean?
I think that shows the sport's growing, because like you, I'm a big fan of MMA, big fan of pugilism. But you look at like Raul Rodriguez, that kid. He started at, I think he was 17. Like, now he's 19 or something. But Chihuahua guy, he says Chihuahua. It's a big thing. I don't even know what it means. But I think that youth thing, while everybody wants to paint it as graphs, is what you say, the learning process, and it is also the motivation process, because it's more realistic now to do this. Like, there's a path. On your way up, how many people told you could do it? And how many people told you it's a fool's dream?
Yeah, it was not a, well, the lucky thing for me was that my family supported it.
Yeah.
I came from a fishing family. So I think that made it a little easier for me than probably most people. You know what I mean? I had that support at home because, I mean, I fished my whole life. You know,
Yeah.
I fishing, from a fairly young age. And my father was an avid bass fisherman. He was my team partner. So you know what I mean? I would say I had I wouldn't say it was easy, but I mean, I had an easier path because I had that support at home.
Yeah.
I know, I'm surely I've told you this, but so when Julie and I were getting married, I guess the year that we got married was the year that I started to try to go professional, try to become a professional angler. I was already fishing tournaments or whatever, I had been for a long time, and so she told her parents that, and them being from New Orleans, they were like, they're like, well, what's Greg going to do for a living? And because at that time I was still living in Arkansas and, working in the logging industry with my father. And because we were going to move to Louisiana, she had told them that. She goes, well, he's going to fish. And they were like crab or shrimp. Like they didn't even know what a bass fisherman was. My father-in-law didn't even know. Like now, every time I go to his house, there's a Bassmaster magazine laying on the coffee table. Okay, always a new one. Like he is a member of Bass. The man has never thrown a spinnerbait, never made a cast with a spinnerbait in his entire life. But yeah, there are Bassmaster magazines laying on his coffee table. But they didn't know what I was going to do. Like they're just going to shrimp or crab or long line.
Well, and I guess my point is you had to come from a fishing family or get exposed to it. You have people now, like one of the kids who's Emil Wagner, going to be on the Elite Series next year. He is Danish, was lived there till he was 2. His parents do not fish, have never fished. But you can take kids now because, and I think it's, again, comparing it to other sports. I bet you back in the day, all the football players, growing up, their dad was a football player. Their family were football families. But there was some kids, as it grew, that got exposed to it in school. And I think that that's happening now, where you've got kids who, kids do things that they get exposed to, but generally something they're successful at or something they get a feeling from. So, your kid can go to high school, have never really fished in his whole life, join a fishing club, and there's steps to take.
Well, so one thing that's really changed, just the sport of bass or tournament fishing in general has gotten so much bigger. Like I know so many guys that got into fishing to tournament fish. Okay.
Yeah.
So we fished a lot. We didn't even know what a bass tournament was. You know what I mean? Like, so I was an avid fisherman before I watched Clun win the Classic.
Yeah.
Wanted to be a tournament fisherman. I didn't even know that existed. To me, it is a little bit foreign that I'm like, you didn't fish? Like I find it weird, but I didn't grow up that way. Because I still enjoy to fish. Just to go fishing or whatever. And even if the day when I don't tournament fish anymore, I may fish more then than I do now. You know what I mean? Because it won't be any stress. I feel like that probably keeps me sometimes from fishing some. I'm like, oh, let's get away from that. I'm worried about, I don't want to be stressed by fishing right now, so I'll just get away from it. But so I kind of, that is one thing I will look forward to with my retirement is able to go fishing and just be fun and not have to get up at 3:00 in the morning. So fishing will become, when I retire from tournament fishing, for me, it will be a gentleman's sport. We won't be going in the dark. We'll be going at 9:00. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not getting up at 3:00 in the morning to go fishing then. Oh, he's out there about 9.
I see sometimes we'll go down to the Florida Keys, dude, and I have this weird little dream where I'm like, and it's so weird. You see those dudes who drive those bicycles. Some of them are 3-wheeled bicycles, and they got baskets and rods and stuff, and they just pedal down to the pier, wherever they're living, and they just fish for a few hours and go back for breakfast. I look at that and I'm like, man, that is like, to me, that would be a wonderful retirement. Like, what do you do? My beard just got longer and I just fish for a few hours, go home for breakfast,
I'm just hoping I say that I can do that. But like, even when I'm fun fishing, it's never laid back. You know what I mean? Like, because when I'll fish with my friends, some of my friends, I'm like, they don't fish like I do. I'll have 50 more cats every 10 minutes than they have. You know what I mean? Like, it's an intensity. You know, even Julie says that when I start, it's good that I've not deer hunted lately, because once I start, like, there's no, oh, I'm just going to go this afternoon for a couple of, it's not like that. I don't have that personality. Anything I do like that is typically overbearing. Like, I just can't half-ass anything. If I'm going to do it, we're going to do it right, and I'm going to be good at it. And if I can't be good at it, I don't want to do it. I hate, that's a poor attitude to have, but I'm just like that about everything. So I'm just hoping one of these days I can get up about 9 o'clock, because then I'll be like, I don't know, it's time for the shad spawn. So I'm going to need to be out there at the crack of daylight, you know. But,
so you were always that guy? Like when you were 10 years old, going fishing with your buddies, with your dad, were you always
over the top,
getting more casts, getting more angles? Like,
so I am so competitive, like even to the point I don't realize it. You know what I mean? Like I'll catch myself being competitive. I took a couple guys fishing in Arkansas. I donated a deal to the Arkansas Game and Fish, and a day on the lake, and I took these two guys fishing, and they and the place was extraordinary. We were fishing, and like I would turn it on and turn it off. Like literally I could catch them every cast. It was insane. And they were 4 to 6 pounders. Like this place was incredible. It was a friend of mine's reservoir in Stuttgart. It's like 150 acres. It was stupid how many 4 to 6 pound blown up 4 pounders were. And I would turn it on and turn it off. I'm like, you can't fish like this with these guys. They'll never, you know what I mean? Like I would just about have to quit fishing so not to pick them all off before they got to them.
So is that a battle happening in your head when you're fishing? Slow down, Greg. Be nicer.
Yeah, I have that. And or like I'll have that deal. And I think a lot of it generates from, you know, fishing tournaments, fishing by myself all the time. Like if I've got somebody standing in the back of the boat and we're fishing down a stretch, it's hard for me not to hit all the good places. You know? And I fished with guys like that before, and they didn't catch. And they're like, "How you caught everything?" And I was like, "Wouldn't you be disappointed if I didn't?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do.
I agree.
Like I would fish wars with the Mossy Oak group, and then I was like, you know, y'all have a better chance of beating me if both of you fished against me at the same time. I'm not gonna beat you regardless, because I'm gonna make sure you don't. But I'm like, if y'all both fish together, you could give you a better opportunity. And I just beat the piss out of them. And I love those guys. They're great guys, but let me just tell you, I'm like, y'all wanted to smoke, so you're going to get it.
Who's the most competitive person you've ever fished with outside of yourself?
Like in the boat with me?
Yeah, just...
You know, I've never really had the opportunity. I've not really fished with a lot of our guys in the boat. I used to fish with Stephen Browning a good bit, but him and I fished really well together. We fished some team deals together, and we just gelled. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't bother me if he was running the truck. Like, we fished some redfish deals. He'd run the trolling motor, and I stood in the back. We just do 2 different things and work well together. And so here's the deal. When we were fishing those of the redfish deal, we drew a check every time.
Really?
Neither one of us were red fishermen. We were both bass fishermen, but we were very competitive.
I mean, I was at the Redfish Cup this past weekend, and that's a different event now than it was then. You know what I mean? It's a Yamaha event that they put together, and there's 10 different teams. 6 of the teams qualified to be there. 4 of the teams are just made up of a bass pro and a redfish pro. And dude,
question I had, because I didn't understand. I didn't know how it was set up, but I didn't understand why. I was like, wonder why there's not a bass guy in every boat, like 50-50. Now that makes sense, because those other 6 teams qualified for the deal. I didn't know how.
Yeah, it but every year you see it stand out. Like there's a level to competition, and it's not besmirching any of those redfish angler. There's incredible anglers, but it just seems like in the redfish world, people are more willing to let it happen. Where the bass guys are like, yeah, well, we're gonna force this. This is going to happen. We're gonna find a way, and it's really unique to see. Because, I mean, the first year, it was won by Chris Aldane and Ryan Rickard. Ryan Rickard is a redfish dude, super good dude. And I thought that was one of the perfect combos ever, because I don't believe that there's any way Chris Aldane wins that tournament without Ryan Rickard's redfish knowledge and tide knowledge. But there's also no way, and they both admitted this, that Ryan Rickard wins that tournament without having a guy saying, hey, throw these big giant swim baits, throw chatter baits, bass baits, like they attacked it totally, but it was cool to see their minds. But definitely the saltwater world feels like it's less forced, I guess. It's more like they'll come to us.
Probably the biggest thing that hurt when we were fishing those deals, we could outfish those guys, but we didn't have knowledge. You know what I mean? We didn't understand why redfish or place the areas. Like that seemed like what beat us on the bigger weights were that they knew where the fattest fish were. Like that was a big deal because of the length. Everybody weighs the same length fish basically, but you would have some that we didn't know that part of it. Oh, well, these are crab eaters, or these fish are eating snails and they'll be fatter. The pond redfish will be bigger than the redfish that are out in the bay, because those are chasers and they're long and skinny, and the ones in the ponds. Like that kind of knowledge we didn't have. But what we have was we were very competitive and we were really good casters. And we would watch those guys sight fish where they wouldn't make a cast. They would sit and hold their rod. Well, we would do that too. But like if Steven was running the trolling motor and looking for a sight fish, I'm freaking bombing in every direction as far as I can cast. And I would catch some like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we go to Florida, the water's clear. I tie out so the big deal was then here, a baby -1 crushed a redfish. I mean, in those ponds. So we get in Florida and the water's gin clear. Don't worry. I just tie on a crawfish colored one. They suck it to their crush. Understood that. I caught them swimming a jig in Florida at Clearwater, Florida. A green pumpkin jig, and I think I've used I put the gulp shrimp deal on the back of my swim jig, because I figured it out. If you had that scent on there, that redfish would chase that swim jig. He'd eat it if he could. It's about like a smallmouth. Like red fishing isn't like real similar to fishing for smallmouth. They act a lot the same. They're kind of the same. I don't know. They were just a lot alike, because the smallmouth's big on scent.
Yeah.
The redfish were the same way, and they both have good eyesight. They both can see well. But I enjoy. But I did. And on a side note, before we get off the redfish deal, I noticed Justin Atkins got a top 10 in that deal.
Yeah, he did. He'll appreciate you noticing too.
I know. I'll text him. I'll take it.
Oh gosh. What's going to be weirder for you this year? Lining up in a trough behind or near Bo Browning as an Elite Series pro, or looking out in the crowd and seeing the front row soccer dad Stephen Browning watching Bo Browning weigh in? That's
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know Stephen's heart longs to be back in the elites. I've not talked to him about what he's doing next year, but I feel like he's fishing the opens. I don't know that, but I'm sure that would be a huge dream of his for both of them to be in the elites.
Oh yeah.
And Bo is such a good kid. You know what I mean? So I've known Bo Browning since he was 2. You know what I mean? Like since he was big enough to walk, and he is a really good kid, and he's a great. But I'll be honest with you, all them boys coming, we're getting good groups. You know what I mean? They're aggressive, and I know they're a little rough around the edges, but they will learn to be professionals. I don't know. It's not. I'm not. Don't mean that negatively, but they do have some. They're going through some growing pains on some of that. You know, I'll be honest with you. At that age, I couldn't have been a professional.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, I still needed to grow up at 19 years old. I didn't need to be elite. Like, I might have been a late bloomer, so it was kind of good that I started my fishing career late in life when I could be a professional, if that makes sense. That time from about 18 to, let's call it, I don't know, 23, 24, there was no grass grew under my tires. You know what? I burned a giant candle from both ends, and I was living life. I didn't need to be fishing the elites. So for those boys to be able to do that, because you have to be so, like, I don't know, like I said, at that age, I had too much going on.
Yeah.
Like, I might be afraid to stay out a little late. You know what I mean? I'm staying out a little late during that. Like,
Yeah.
Stayed out late a lot of nights. You know, that it's impressive that they have enough love already at that age, you know, to be able to be disciplined enough to do what they do to compete at such a high level.
Because they also, of our group, there is some of our group that still likes to stay up late at night, but it ain't those kids. Like I literally, I'm trying to think, it's not them. Like not one of them.
Yeah, I know one for sure. Like several of them cats actually, and they're let's call them middle aged.
Yeah,
some of our middle aged elite. Some of them may be from different countries. I don't know.
I'm not going to pigeonhole anyone.
I will be honest with you. I'm kind of glad. I really enjoy their company. I'm kind of glad that I'm a little older than they are, so I know better than to stay out with them.
You can avoid the temptations.
I can avoid it. Like I've grown past the temptation point, so I don't have to worry about peer pressure. But let me tell you this: they will put it on you. Oh, you need to go with us. I'm like, I think I do. Like down inside, there's a part of me that probably does. But I'm like, yeah, I'm over
that. Yeah, I mean, they have some good times, though. They do.
For me, in that 19 to 22-year-old range, I'd be like, I can stay out all night and fish the Bassmasters tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get 2 hours, I'm good. Like I went through that period of time, you know, where I felt like with a couple hours of sleep, I was bulletproof again the next day, but not anymore.
I had one buddy who used to think he's fished better that way. It helps me. It slows me down.
It's so funny. I had one that said, I won't call any names, but it went the same way. He said, man, I can do some drag. He liked to drag. He's like, man, if I stay out late that next day, I'll slow down, do slow drag.
And that's how
think you can do better. You really can.
Yeah. Well, that's how people become alcoholics and comedians become drug addicts, because they try just a little bit of drugs and they go up there and they kill, or they think they kill, and they're like, the next time they go and they're like, well, maybe I need a little just medicinal.
Right.
Of those blue jackets in that room, which it was super cool. I told you that night, the night before when we did dinner, it was really cool to have you there for Zona. And I know that meant a lot to him. But when you look at those blue jackets in that room, you look at that room. I mean, it's intimidating. It's amazing. It's all of the above. But is there other traits? Like, is there a trait that they all have in common when you look at them and say, we talked about instinct, but you need to be this if you want to make it there? Or are they all over the board?
I think, though, like the majority of the people in that room, and a bunch of them I got to visit with that night, all my heroes were there. That's probably the coolest thing for me, honestly. Well, first, I got the invite from Zona, you know, and that was just honestly an honor to just be invited to the deal as he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And then the other part of the deal that was so great for me was stand around and there's Nixon, Hank Parker, who had just fell off a tree stand, like he'd been hit by a car and still made it there. Like, that's the thing that has impressed me about a lot of those guys. Basil Bacon, they were all there. And I got to visit Tommy Martin, who looks just like he has for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But the thing is that those guys still love the sport enough to show up. Think about that.
Stacey King, so many of them.
They were all there. And, for me, it was like being a kid again, because I got to visit with all of them.
Yeah.
Standing around telling stories. And I'm like, that part of, to me, probably was, not to take anything away from Zona getting inducted, but just me being able to hang out with all my heroes like that was such a huge deal for me. Like, when I came home, that's what I told Julie. I'm like, yeah, I got to see. They're all there, and they all come. They all still love the sport so much that they're there. They didn't have to be there. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't have to show up. I think that's one thing that makes them who they are. They're special people. They're the original group who elevated our sport so it can get to the point that it is now. I mean, no sport of bass fishing or especially tournament fishing, if with the high school and the college and everything, is bigger than it's ever been before. But we rode those guys' shirt tails to that point. They were pioneers. They all had a dream. They all had a passion. It's the reason there is a Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. But those guys are the original, those are the guys who got us there. And I think some of that, like, I wonder about that with a lot of the young guys that are coming up now. Do they really know who Rick Clunn is? Do they truly know who he is? So I grew up in his era, so I totally understand. Yeah, a lot of them are like, yeah, it's cool, Clunn's still fishing and he won 4 classics. It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if they'll ever realize that. And maybe they will as they get older. You know what I mean? But like right now, I don't think they really see it. And I probably realize it more now than I ever have before too. And that may be the age thing. But like being at the Hall of Fame around all those guys in those blue jackets, such an honor to really realize, like, without those guys, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to ever go, like, and there's a whole list of guys, like new guys coming into the Hall of Fame or whatever, but we've rode all those guys' shirt tails. You and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now if it wasn't for those guys in those blue jackets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that everybody that supported, Bassmaster and the tournament fishing that we don't know, it takes those guys too. You know what I mean? Like, but those guys at the top are the ones that, had huge fan bases and who grew the sport.
Yeah.
And professionals. But I will tell you this, when I started in 2004, that whole group of guys that were in those blue coats the other night were still fishing. Like, they were still fishing Bassmaster when I got there, my rookie season. And they were all professionals. They all carried I'm not saying they didn't, occasionally mouth one another on the water. That's just being competitors.
Yeah.
But like when they were not fishing, not out there during competition, anytime that they were on around the public or just, they were true professionals. They carried themselves in a very professional manner. And I looked up to that. And that's one thing, like, there was a huge group of them. It wasn't like I was only looking up to Larry Nixon.
Yeah.
Breyer, you know what I mean? They were all there. Martin Davis, everybody was there. And they all carried themselves in a similar manner. Now, they were all competitors and would cut each other's throat on the water. They all have that, go for the throat deal. But they were all very professional. And I've always looked up to that,
How were you? We heard a lot of talk about rookies last year, obviously, and I don't, nothing to do with forward facing sonar or anything. I just mean, like, there was a lot of rookies who verbally said, "Hey, man, I haven't been as welcomed as I thought I was going to be welcomed." What was your rookie season like?
So I was very welcomed. You know what I mean? Like, I probably by that group of guys, I was very welcomed. I didn't really have any. I mean, I was the rookie of the year in 2004, my rookie season.
Yeah.
I didn't choose. There was no drama. I didn't make any. I mean, it's the reason all those guys the other night in those blue jackets, they all came up to me and, so the thing I wanted most out of professional bass fishing was the respect of my peers. That's all I've ever asked for when I started. Now, of course, then I've probably gotten greedy since then, but when I started, that was the biggest thing I wanted was the respect of my peers. And
if you go into a career with that being your goal, there's pretty good chance it'll work out good for you.
I think that's so. This sport being like any of the rest of them, I don't think you have to do anything outlandish to do well. Does that make sense? I think you can go out there and do things the right way and be successful. Now, I'm not telling you that somebody can't cut corners but is it worth it? You know what I mean? Like, is it worth cutting corners to be successful? I don't think so. It may take you a little longer to get to the point you want to do by doing it right. But when you get there at the end, you don't have any regrets. You don't regret anything. And you end up with the respect of your peers. So I don't know. Like, each to his own, But here's the deal. I don't worry about those kids too much because I got 19 and 20-year-old kids at my house. I can handle them.
Back then, though, there were corner cutters, right? I mean, I don't need you to name names, but there's always been corner cutters.
There's always been in our sport. There's always those guys have always been out there, and I've always liked this. That deal will work itself out. I guess I don't worry about it too much. You cut corners enough, it'll work itself out. It always does. You can only beat the system. And typically when somebody beats the system one time and it works, they'll just keep doing it till it catches up with them. So I don't really worry about it too much. I kind of tend to my own business and do my own thing and let everybody else's problems be their problems and not my problems. I did see, like, there were a handful of guys in our group that kind of let a lot of things that went on this year get to their head mentally, and it hurt their performance at the end. And that's the thing I think you have to be careful of. You can't let other people's problems. And then here's the deal. I hate to say this about bass fishermen. They spread so many rumors. I don't know what's the truth and what's not the truth. What's not. Does that make sense?
100%.
Like, a lot of the drama that was created this year in our deal, social media doesn't help it. It doesn't do anything but just like pour gas on the fire. But a lot of it was drama that should have never been drama. It wasn't drama. It wasn't anything. But it all got blown out of proportion, and there was more rumors and lies, and I don't know what was the truth and what wouldn't. And I'm like, dude, y'all need to forget about this and just go fishing. Because the one thing I do know in 20 plus years of bass fishing professionally, there is one thing out there that will solve all your problems, and it is your fishing pole. And as long as it works, you don't have any problems. When it's not working, you have a problem.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of this year was. Yeah. But I also question myself where I'm like, is it our sport or is it just the world? Like, everything is now a freaking debate. Like, everything. Like, Halloween's in a couple of days, in a day when this airs. People are going to post pictures of them dressed as pumpkins, as ghouls, as goblins. Somebody's going to be like, that's a horrible ghost costume. Nobody asked you. I just posted a picture of me as a ghost. Like, right. Whether you like it or I mean, it's the way the world. And that being said, like, I think debate is always good. I think open dialogue is always good. But I think obsessive debate is. I listened to a thing on the Joe Rogan, and it really made me. And a lot of people will shut down as soon as you say that, but he had a doctor on, and it made me think of something, because this doctor was dealing with, I mean, there's a lot of kids now that deal with anxiety, depression, all sorts of different issues. A lot of, not just kids, people, but I mean, a lot of that comes from a lot of the things they see online. But this doctor's whole point was we're too obsessed with having a problem. Like, for example, anxiety. And I'm not belittling anybody that deals with anything, because everybody deals with something, is my opinion. Like, whether it's you, it's somebody in your family, it's too prevalent. But her theory on it is like, so if you're obsessing over your anxiety, what does that do? It makes your anxiety worse, and that feels like what happened this year. Like, there were certain anglers that by the end of the season, like, I don't remember having a jovial conversation with them at all, like, other than on stage. But like backstage, it would be, hey, how are you? And then it would go right into, did you hear this?
Yeah, I noticed that. Like, a couple, like, I was like, oh, wow. Dude, fixing to explode. I'm like, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? Again, you can only take care of your own problems. You can't worry about any other ones. And I do think that the social media increases that. The worst thing you can do is read comments. So I'll tell you this, and this was back when I had a Facebook page. I mean, I still have a Facebook page, but before Instagram and all that. And so I think I started that in 14. It was I won Angler of the Year that year. And so, that was something I needed to do. I've never been great at social media. I will say that. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. I'll just go off the map, you know what I mean, and be vacant, did he die or something? But I can't help it. That's just my personality. But anyway, but the best advice I ever had was from Jay Kumar. And he goes, look, you're going to start doing this social media deal. Don't read any comments. Post whatever you want to post. Never read them. And I did at the time. I was like, that's kind of weird. What's that? But I didn't realize it then, but I do now. Well, I've realized it before now, but I totally get that now. And you'll just get obsessed with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Who's saying what or whatever. And so to now, I still don't read. I hate this, but I'm sure it's the reason a lot of people they message me and they don't get messaged back because I don't read the comments. Because I don't want to get caught up in any of that. You know what I mean? I try not to post anything to piss anybody off, and then just don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Because the world is full of armchair coaches. Everybody knows how to fix everybody's problems, regardless if it's your personal problems or your home problem. If you want to have all you got to do is post your problem, and the world will be full of doctors. You know what? And I think that's the world, and that causes all that anxiety. Or people I think even to the point people like to post, oh, hey, look at me, look what I got. And it makes other people jealous of what they got, even though the other person has just much. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just the world we live in. You know what I mean? I told Zona this. I was like, you know what? I don't think social media has been the best thing for the sport of bass fishing. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's been good. Whatever positive it has created, it's doubled it in negativity.
Yeah.
It has. I hate to say it, but it's like you said, it's not just our sport. It's everybody's sport. It's everybody's job. There's so much drama just in the world today. I mean, damn, we're fixing to go through an election. I promise you, in the next 9 days or whatever it is, there's going to be some drama.
Yes.
And you just sitting up there in the apartment, just looking down here. Sit back and watch. Just sit back and watch.
I learned a long time ago, my position on American politics is no comment. I'm from Canada. So.
But see, Dave, you live in a perfect world. You can comment.
Yeah.
Because where y'all live is perfect.
No, it's a mess.
Thrown on the top of Mount Olympus and look down on us, see?
Well, whoever told you it's perfect, I'll talk to them, because there's a lot of messed up. I mean, the world's messed up. It just really is. And I agree with you on social media, and I don't think it's just fishing. I think it's the world. I just think it's horribly named because it's the most antisocial thing there is.
Yes.
And it's sad that you have to take that approach. Like, I mean, I try to get back to most comments on this podcast, for example. Like, I'll try to literally at least let them know I read it. But dude, to get there, I had to go through a shitstorm of like strengthening me, where now if somebody, because people just go off. I mean, there's certain people that just go off and dislike you for something. Generally, it's not even something that's true. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this, but I read them because it doesn't affect me at all. But I will say this year, I literally had to stop watching fishing podcasts. And I used to watch them all, but it just got so, I mean, dude, we're fishing. Like, to me, it just was, and when I was watching all of them, I was getting so like inundated with, I mean, it's like literally having people over your shoulder going, this sucks, you suck, that's not going to work. And I just think the world is so obsessed with that and judging themselves. Like, just be happy with, I mean, I got a freaking good life. But guess what? If I go to some places, they look at me and be like, dude, you are a loser. Well, I just don't need to hang out with those people because I don't drive the vehicles they drive. And you know what I mean? It's just a messed up world.
It was to the point this year that I couldn't tell you what people like and what they don't like. I have no idea.
They like bitching.
They do. And like this year, I don't know. They had a lot on their, and they had been keeping it bottled up for the last 5 or 10 years. And they decided this year that they were going to let it all hang out. Here. And so I don't know how our economy sucks.
Yeah.
Our interest rate is through the roof. It's $100. And I get it. And that, I think maybe that I blame it on the economy that, a lot of things that are going on, but I don't know if that's true or not. We hopefully we'll know here in the next 9 days or so. But like, there's a lot of negative out there in the world. The gas is high, and there are a lot of things that affect us and fishermen. You know what? Gas is a big deal for us. I mean, because we burn a lot of it. And I'll be honest with you, when it's $1 a gallon cheaper, it does save me a lot of money. My expenses this year, I'll be honest with you, on the elites were more than they've ever been before because of our economy. Whether it's groceries, we cook, we stay in a house, we cook at the tournaments, whether it's buying the groceries, the gas, the travel, my boat gas, whatever, our entry fees are still the same as they've been forever. That part didn't go up, but everything is going up around it. So we are all affected by that. And I'll be honest with you, I am disgruntled about that sometimes. I don't post that on social media, but I'm pissed off because we showed up in Florida and gas was $4 a gallon. You know what I mean? Or I left home and where we went someplace else and it was $1 higher than it was, at my house. And I don't understand that. I don't understand the dynamics. Like, I drive up the road 30 minutes and it's 60 cents higher. All that does have an effect on you mentally.
Yeah.
It does put that nozzle in that boat or in my truck, but I still don't get on social media and like bash I don't like to watch somebody catch fish because they weren't catching them the way I wanted to catch them. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's one thing about now. That is one good thing about being an American. If you want to scope. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Like, nobody is forced to do anything they don't want to do, but they love to complain about it.
But that's also how the world's becoming, like in the way that you're 100% right. Like, and I've said that, I've responded to people and been like, the best thing about fishing is you don't have to do it. You can do it just how you want. It hasn't changed at all. You can do it how you want.
Throw a spinnerbait all day. You'll catch one on it eventually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so here's the fun. There's the deal about fishing and all that stuff, frogging, flipping, scoping, whatever you're doing. It's all in how you like to catch them. I don't have any trouble at all going out there and fishing for 5 hours without a bite flipping grass to find one little wad of them where I light them up at just for those few seconds of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Fish to see that line jump or to get that frog blow up. You know, it's all the same. It's all in what's fun to you. You know, it's the same thing we talk about UFC. It's, you know, styles of fighting makes fights. I'll be honest with you. I don't like to see them grapple the whole time. I do like to see them bang, but I'm not going to quit watching UFC because the first match was somebody got knocked out, and the next one they wrestled the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Two wrestlers in the deal. You know, but I'm a huge fan of it. I didn't quit watching it because this guy wrestles and this guy's a kickboxer or, you know.
That's what it's all about, testing themselves against each other. And to me, it's, you know, the wrestling thing. And I agree with you, you know, but you don't hear people being like, we need to get rid of wrestling in this sport. It's not how I, but that's what I was saying. That's where the world has gotten to, where everybody wants to identify with what, you know what I mean? Like that they want to, like when I was a kid in politics, it was, you wanted the right person for the job. Well, now you turn on any news channel and people will be, I want a person who looks like me. I want a person who sounds like me. I want a person who has the same beliefs. Like ultimately you want the right person to do the job, but now people, I mean, I just think we're all being separated in groups.
I don't even know if people even look like now when an election comes of any kind, they just, it's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that they really look going to do the best job or, you know, like, I don't think they worry about that anymore. It's like, it's who they look like, you know, like I'm going to pick this person because they're more like me.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the end result. I don't give a shit what they look like. I want to know who's going to do the best for me. Who's going to get that gas down cheap, Dave? So you know what I'm kind of stuff I'm worried about. I'm not worried about anything in life but my good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like whatever makes my life easier where I can hunt and fish. I don't do anything else. I'm a pretty simple bastard. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to have a few cocktails, hang out, go camping.
That's what makes you happy though.
That's all I do. So that when I'm picking a candidate, I'm like, who's going to make it easy to have a good time? That's all I'm concerned about.
The world spends too much time looking at other people, and you know what I mean. Like, and not looking at the right people. Like, I mean, look at our situation. I live in Canada. You live in the U.S. We can look at a lot of the world and be like, "Thank God we are where we're at." Thank God.
Well, a lot of it too. That's one great thing about what we do because I've got to see a lot of pretty places. I've got to fish in Canada.
Yeah.
You know, many months ago, I was fishing in Canada. You know what I mean? And without doing this, you know, this career that I have, I wouldn't have got to see all those places. Like back when we used to go to California all the time. I've not been to California since. There are so many states out there that I've been to fishing. I've not been to those states for any other reason. So it's given me an opportunity, you know, to see all these great places, see our great nation and some of yours. So they do. I still don't think they like me going to Canada, but now I'm over by boat. When I'm in that Phoenix, I don't worry about it because when I go to Canada fishing, you know, I'm like, they can't catch me.
Well, I'm sure they like you. I mean, it was one instance. We don't need to get. It happened to me going the other way too. I mean, ever sooner or later, you roll the dice enough, and somebody gonna.
Yeah, I was scarred.
Yeah, it can scar you.
For years they look at it and come to Canada, ask the match.
When I had my bad situation coming into the States, I mean, long story short, it was literally just. I have a work visa to work, and that it rather than renewing it, they put new numbers out. So it was a lot. I spent a day in a cell, and he was going down there. But here's the kicker: how that got fixed was so I had to obviously keep crossing the border because it's what I do, and every time I cross, it would be a nightmare. And then one day, I'm in Port Huron of all places, and Zona likes to act like. He's not proud to have been part of that movie Bait Shop, but thank God he was because I'm in Port Huron and I'm crossing and I get pulled aside because once you get one of those, every time you get pulled aside, I mean, you get pulled aside for a long time afterwards if you have a situation at the border. Well, I get talking to this guy, and he brings up bass fishing and had a Bassmaster hat on or whatever, and he goes, "Hey, one of my favorite movies. Have you ever seen the movie Bait Shop?" He says. I'm like, "Seen it. I love that movie. My buddy was in that movie." He's like, "Who's your buddy?" I said, "Mark Zona, the fisherman that's in it." Oh my! So we got on this whole bait shop conversation. So the fact that Mark Zona was in bait shop, and then I told the guy my situation, like, "Hey, there was a misunderstanding 8 months ago, and that dude spent 20 minutes on the computer typing all sorts of stuff." And he's like, "You should be good from now on." And if Mark Zona wasn't in bait shop, I'd still be getting anally probed every time I cross the border. So thank God for it.
The thing about that is, Dave, if you want to come to this country, if you just fly to Mexico, you can walk in and out. It's like, I don't know why on the top end they're leery of Canada. If you come in the bottom end, you won't have any trouble getting over here. And they won't even check you. Hell, they might even write you a check and put you up in the house somewhere. You're going about this all the wrong way. Like, easier route.
I just need to come from the south, not the north. Okay.
Yeah, it's always easier from the bottom end.
I've heard some crazy stories about that. Just people that land down there and the amount of people that like, and that being said, I also think like, gosh, people that are willing, like Texas, you're going to cross Texas by foot. Like there's times I've driven along fields and I see, this long expanse and I'm like, you couldn't pay me any amount of money to run through there with all the snakes and all and these people they're trying to get to freedom. But it's nuts. Like if you land down there, it's overrun with.
Yeah, it's insane. Well, the bad thing, it's like everything else. A few bad ones mess it up for the good ones. There are good people trying to get here, and then there are a lot of bad ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're a good one, Greg Hackney.
Well, the good thing is we just don't have to worry about them coming in from Canada because they got that border locked down up there.
Yeah, trust me. You need a lot of paperwork. And hey, where did Hack Attack come from? Who started that? Do you remember?
Yeah, Fish Fishburne was commentating the Opens, and it was it was the year I fished the Opens and qualified for the, then it was the tour, I guess 1 year before. But yeah, he came up with that thing. I won points that year in the Opens, and that's how I got it. That was I guess that was the year before my rookie. Well, it was the first time I made it to the Classic. So I qualified for the Classic. So that would have been in 2002. So I qualified for the Classic, the 03 Classic, and I did not fish the tour. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of it was money because I was already fishing FLW. So I was like, well, I made the Classic, so I need to make the FLW Championship. So I just concentrated on FLW. And then the next year, I made the Classic again through the Opens. But then, they had the Open Championship. And so the Open Championship was at Toledo Bend. And if you finished in the top 5, I think, they paid our entries into the tour. And so I waited till, how about that? It's the only year that Bass has paid my way, but my first year as a rookie, Bass paid my entry fees in the tour. So that was the reason I fished, because I didn't know if financially I could afford to. I was already fishing FLW, and I didn't know. I was like, man, that's expensive, fishing both tournament trails, and I didn't know if I could do it or not, honestly. So that's how I fished. Like my whole career has kind of been like that to some extent because I won the Arkansas State Federation tournament, and that guaranteed me a spot into the Opens. And then I won the points in the Opens, and just like that's kind of how I've always just kind of I don't guess I ever really rushed anything. I just kind of let it fall in place, and that's how I ended up here today talking to you.
Yeah. I remember when you first showed up, and You were originally like, then you won Rookie of the Year, and that was when you spent a year with Team Toyota, right? After that, that was part of the Rookie of the Year deal, wasn't it? Or
Yeah. So the deal. So I was Rookie of the Year in 04, and seemed like I was with Toyota till like maybe 07.
okay,
I think that's right. And it's funny because I left Toyota and went to Advanced Auto Parts, and Swindle left Advanced Auto Parts and went to Toyota. So he got a place at Toyota, and I went. But yeah, that was in like, it seems like that was 06, 07. I don't know. They had just, because the first year I was with Toyota, they still had the small truck.
yeah,
Like they didn't have, it wasn't it wasn't like
the T100.
Yeah, but it was one size bigger than a Tacoma, but it wasn't the Tundra.
Yeah, it was the first Tundra.
And it was actually a really good, crazy thing about it was smaller, but it was a great truck. I drove it like I stole it. I've never had any, never had any problems. That's one thing about the Toyotas. I'm gonna have to give them credit, dude. You can't hardly tear one of them up. I mean, there are people out there who put a million miles on a Toyota. You can't really say that about any other vehicle. And I am not sponsored by them. I bought my Toyota. I went to the dealership and bought my Toyota. It's just they are very, very dependable. And like the new one that I have now, so I've had it since 22, I guess. The gas mileage is so good. And I think I'm fixing to roll over like 80,000, right about 80,000 on it. And I mean, all those miles are towing my boat.
Wow. With
my foot in it. Like, because I will tell you this, I drive my boat the exact same way I drive that truck.
Hammer down.
Like, I like to go fast. Well, it's not necessarily that I like to go fast. I just don't want to waste any time. You know what I mean? Time is very important to me. The quicker I get from point A to point B, the more time I got to hang out there when I get there.
Makes sense. I feel like I drive fast, but I drive fast because I'm always late. Like I'm a bad manager of time.
Like I'm always, I have a tendency, knock on wood, not to be late. Like always be early, but hell, I leave early and still drive fast. I can't.
What kind of music do you listen to when you hit the road?
So it depends on the mood. So again, because the 90s were my era, I like 90s music. I like alternative. That's probably my number one pick. But it kind of depends on the mood. And I'm more of a 90s rap guy. You know what I mean? I'm like more of the rap, the old school rappers more so now. I can't understand what the new ones say. Like a lot of times it just seems like sounds. I'm more like Ice Cube, Ludacris, because I can actually hear the words, Dr. Dre. That's more my era of rap music. And then it's funny. Certain times country, I won't listen to anything but country, but it's a mood. Like all those are it's about a mood, if that makes sense. Those are really the three genres, and it's always about the mood I'm in.
Yeah.
You can pretty much tell if you just look at what I'm listening. You'll know if stay away or it's a happy hangout mood. Or typically, if it's rap or alternative, I'm lone wolfing. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to hang out with me then.
Yeah. The only thing I don't get is like the real hard death metal. Like Tyler Rivette's big on that. Like he'll drive, according to Brock Mosley, he'll drive 23 hours from Louisiana and the whole way just pissed.
Yeah, he's a big scoper. It clears his head so when he gets to the lake, he can turn on the screen.
Screen seems less noisy then. This has been a fun conversation, Greg.
Yeah, the early mornings aren't bad. I'm almost to the point. So before we get off this is like a very important question I'm fixing to ask you. If you had to give up one of these two things, which would it be? Alcohol or coffee?
Well, that's easy. I don't drink coffee, so I'm out. That's easy for me. I'm one of the weirdos who's never drank coffee. I'm drinking water right now. Don't drink coffee.
Well, I'll drink gallons of coffee. Like it's almost now. I'm like, I don't know. It'd be tough, but I can get drunk in the morning, so I'd get rid of the coffee too. I have no problem having it in the morning. So,
Well, I mean, would you judge me if I had said? I mean, I don't think you. I mean, I don't want to. I know buddies who I think people would have a harder time giving up. I've got buddies who would have a harder time giving up coffee because coffee makes some people do. I mean, I know people who can't start their day without coffee.
I do. I really do enjoy my coffee, and I drink as I've gotten older. I drink more of it. But if I had to give up one or the other, the coffee's got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. But I'll tell you this: if without the coffee, I'd be like, "Come on, 5 o'clock, come on."
Well, that's my life. Welcome to my life.
I'd be wanting to hurt. You catch me with the old school clock turning the speed up the. I would definitely be like I live on Central Time, but if I gave up coffee, yeah, we'd be on Eastern Time.
Oh, well, I think we had a nice chat. I think we talked about some real things. I think we got to know you a little better. What do you think? Do you still hate fishing podcasts as much?
No. Boy, Pat kind of gets on my ass sometimes. I don't from one podcast to another. Sometimes Pat kind of wears me out.
Well, why?
He's a very needy man. Like he needs to take it down. He's a little bit too serious for this whole bass fishing year. No,
yeah,
I had a hard time. Maybe tomorrow.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, maybe.
So you're gonna be on his friggin' podcast the same week you're on my podcast?
I felt bad about it. I had something come up, and I had to go to Arkansas, and I was supposed to do his podcast like a week or so ago. And I had to, like the day before I was supposed to be on there, I had to cancel. I felt bad about that. Let me just tell you, I love bass fishing, but nobody loves bass fishing more than Pat Renwick.
Well, it'd be just fine.
I mean, he's like almost like it's a disease with him. You know what I mean? But
I'm still stuck at the fact that you double booked a show on the same night.
I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, well, this airs tomorrow.
Well, I'll make sure his doesn't air then. What? Dave, how about that?
What?
I'm fixing to text him here when we get off and say,
no, don't.
Dave said, don't do it.
Can I call him right now and tell him you're not doing it?
You can.
Let's see. Hold on. I'm going to call him. Oh, that's a different Pat.
It's not the Pat from SNL, is it? Pat the Neuter?
No. Can you hear that?
I can hear it.
He won't be able to hear you, so.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Pat. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm in the middle of recording a podcast right now, and
nice.
I wanted to call on behalf of my guest to let you know that he can't come to your show this week. He's double booked. It's freaking Greg Hackney. I mean, he's double booked. He just told me we're finishing the podcast, and he said I'm on Pat's, and I'm like, you can't do us both in the same night. So I'm just calling in to say he's sick tomorrow.
Well, that's okay. Unfortunately, my uncle just passed, and I have to cancel anyway. I'm on my way to Florida. So
are you shitting? I'm a loser.
No, heading out.
Oh my God.
I'm heading out that way. No, I didn't even know Greg was still doing it. Honestly, he never got back to me.
He's like that.
You know what? We share those common traits. You know, we're sometimes a little flighty, and we're like little woodland creatures that just happen to go through life.
Yeah. I was really just joking, but I am very sorry to hear about your uncle. This is the loser I am in life. Welcome to it. I mean, I try to make a simple joke, Pat. A simple joke between three friends.
Oh, we're not live, are we?
Well, 100%. This is all being recorded. He can hear you. He can't just can't talk.
I didn't get that. I'm sorry. Jesus Christ, I would not have been like that. I didn't know, Dave. I'm sorry, dude. Yeah, I'm actually in a weird place right now.
Wow. I'm sorry, Pat.
No, it's okay. It's all right. I'm just making arrangements to head out there, and I'll be back sometime this weekend. So
Okay. Sorry to hear that,
all right.
Pat.
Well, I love both of you guys. I hope you know that.
Yeah, well, we love you. That's why we thought we could have a simple call. But as happens in my life, I've got a perfect life.
Hey, wait. Can we do that again?
No. Why? Do you want to just yell at me? Okay, let's do it again. Let's do it.
I didn't know we were live, and I'm not myself. Right?
It's like Bass Live. You just got to always assume you're live.
Right?
Here's what we'll do. I mean, I'm just going to tell you that he can't do your podcast, and I want you to freak out and hang up on me because that's what podcast viewers want to hear, really, anyways.
Okay, no, I got a good one. Do it again.
Okay. Hey, Pat, it's Dave Mercer. Unfortunately, I'm calling to let you.
Dave?
Well, I got bad news. Greg Hackney can't do your podcast because he did mine, and our podcast airs at the same time. So I'm calling in sick for Greg Hackney.
Hold on a gosh dang second. Mom, Hackney's doing Mercers this week. So I can't hang out with either one of you guys anymore. My mom says.
Well,
I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. I just yelled down. My mom was even making tater tots and meatloaf for Hackney.
Well, you can send the tater tots and meatloaf to our show.
She already went to the store.
Well, we'll take the tater tots and meatloaf.
Okay. I'll make up some extra servings.
All right. Pat.
Hackney, we'll reschedule you. We can't do a Mercer and a stray cast in the same week. It's against the Bass Galaxy laws.
Wow.
We have to spread the love.
So is your okay? I don't know whether to say sorry or thank you. I mean,
well, you still get meatloaf and tater tots out of this whole deal. I don't know what to tell you.
We got catering.
DoorDash is on the way to Kenyatta.
All right, Pat.
Be good. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Sorry to hear about your uncle.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate that.
Much love. Bye-bye.
Bye. Peace.
See the loser I am, dude? That's my life.
Calling Pat. Like that. Like it just changed the demeanor of this fight. You know what I mean?
That's what I do. That's my daily existence. I make like I'm the dude who makes a joke. Hey.
Well, that's kind of how it started because I was going to call Pat out, and I'm like, wow, wish I had never mentioned Pat's name. He died. But the only thing I'm like, he's just a strange bird, man. Like,
you think?
I don't even think I would have told him.
What?
Like, I'm a little more private person. I don't think I would have told you that my uncle passed away. I probably told you, you know what? Whatever, screw Hackney. He can be. We will get his ass out to dry the next time he's on this one. I can tell you that right now. Like, that's if I had a podcast.
All right. Well,
I don't need you on here, Pat. We can have a podcast without you. We will have a podcast without you. No, but I did feel bad about that the other day. I was supposed to be on there, and then something came up last minute.
Well,
because you do just like you and I scheduled this one. You schedule out in advance. Things happen. I mean, family members pass away. I mean, you know what I mean? Because I think it was the 30th. Pat and I were supposed to do it on the 30th, which would be tomorrow. And
yeah.
I haven't heard back from him since, so I guess that makes sense that he had some problems.
Yeah, he was going to call you and bail on it. All of this. I mean, we were done 15 minutes ago, Hack. We were done. It was nice. We did a good job.
Maybe note to editor. Maybe you just gut this part out.
No, because here's the other thing about Pat. As much as he probably said more than he wanted to say live, it would bother him more if we cut him out of the podcast. Am I wrong?
What was the deal that Pat was doing last year behind the stage? The Moultrie,
Moultrie live cam behind the stage, talking to you in the troughs.
I will tell you this. It's a good job for Pat working for Bass because the dude is so passionate about bass fishing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are certain people out there that just, he's that guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's that guy. Pat and I fished together this year too many times. One or two twice. Pat, I don't know.
You had him as a marshal.
Yeah, he talks too much. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, are we have a big deal for me? Shut up. I mean, I'm just, that's not. I couldn't tell him in the boat because here you can't say anything. Now, this is you're in a boat with people like that. You can't do anything that will harm of the boat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, hey, Pat, don't talk. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, I'm tense. You know what I mean? And that goes on. If you say that, it creates bad juju. Same thing when you had co-anglers. You would have co-anglers that would throw on you or whatever. And I would hate to say anything to them. Again, because it causes there's tension in the air. You know, now I have had to tune some of them up, but like that would be last case scenario because you don't want to make tension. I mean, Christy told me about a story of his marshal the second day at Murray. I mean, it was horrible. And a lot of times I don't think those guys, they say stuff, they don't really realize what they're saying. Like he says one comes up, eats his topwater, a big one, and he's struggling the second day, and it jumps off, and the guy's like, ooh, you needed that one.
Gosh.
Like, why? But I've had that. I've had people say that. You know, and I'm like, why would you say that? Like the things they say, I don't think they think about it. And again, because they don't think like we do. And like so many people who follow the sport of bass fishing have no idea what's going through the guy's head that's standing up there on that trolling motor and the pressure and the intensity. And you know what I mean? They don't know that. The screen doesn't show it. You can watch guys and you see on the guy, you know, he cries when one comes off or whatever. You see some of the emotion, but only a small percentage of what, you know, is really going on with everything, you know?
Yeah. I always, when we have newer staff and stuff, I give them a little speech every year. Like as the season moves on, I'm like, you guys have to understand what is happening with these anglers. Like you have to respect it. Like everybody looks at the pressure of the person who's trying to win Angler of the Year, but there's maybe even more so pressure about a person who is literally casting for their career to stay in the elites and there's battles outside of that we all don't know. You don't know what's happening with Buddy financially, and he's got to come up with an entry fee. And if he doesn't it's not easy.
It's not. And I just think a lot of those guys crawl off but I always wonder about that. I'm like, what do they tell them in the meeting? The first thing in the marshal meeting that should be said, don't speak unless you're spoken to. Don't talk. Don't say anything, you know, or have that conversation before y'all get out there on the water of, can I ask you some questions? You know, yeah. It's okay for me to do that, you know, because again, it's so different if you went to if a surgeon is doing heart surgery, and you send some jackleg in the room with him, and he can just ask him questions while he's working on this guy's heart. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what a marshal is allowed to do. He's allowed to be with the surgeon during surgery.
Yeah.
And I don't think they don't think about it. You know what they think? It's fishing. But it's not. It's way past. Well, we're back on another subject now that we had to forget about Pat. We needed to get away from
it. I think our sport's unfair in that way in general. Like, I think it is. It's the way it is. It's our sport because it doesn't have crushing hits and things that other sports have. You guys have to give more. Like, if you look at, I mean, in baseball, they interview a coach in between innings, and there's purists that say that is wrong. You shouldn't. Now you see them interviewing players, like asking players, not in the playoffs and stuff, but when they're in the outfield, and the guy will be answering questions. But that is like such a strange thing. Well, you guys have to do it all day, like for 8 hours, and then entertain. You know, be entertaining on. And if you're not, then it hurts you. In the end, your sponsors are like, why isn't this person more this or that. But yeah, so Marshall should shut up.
Well, they should just really respect the guy that's in the, that they're with, whoever it may be, and just think about that. Hey, here's the deal. This is the other thing. A guy in our deal has 9 weeks to make a living.
Yeah.
That's it. 9 weeks. And then only a handful of hours during that 9 weeks. You know what I mean? So there's so much riding on such a short period of time that it's intense, So if that guy that you're in the boat with and that you've looked at all this time proceeds to turn around and bite your head off, you know what? Just you be very respectful of that. But and most of the guys I get are, but I will tell you, Pat's a little talky. He's a little chatty Cathy. You know what I mean? Like you need to chill, dude. I got too much going on here,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, you look at refs in other sports. I mean, you don't see them casually. Like they might say hi before the game, whatever, but I mean, the ref's not talking the whole time when you're running down the field. If you got to make a catch, and it's split-second decisions and moments, and I get that.
You follow a lot of professional football.
I do.
Yeah. Are you a Bears fan?
Hell no.
Okay, good.
Oh, those poor Bears this past weekend.
I did enjoy the Hail Mary the other night.
And the player trash talking the team, like just trash. It's 4 seconds into the game has been going for 4 seconds, and he's still like, "You suck. We won. Oh shit."
And
poor Zona.
I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan, so that just was like perfect. That was a perfect deal. I didn't call my buddy either and say, "Hey, did you see the game?"
I didn't call him. I saw it. And I thought about nobody else but him and his whole family. Like it just,
There's no way. And then he probably turned and looked at Karen and said, "I bet you Taylor's something to do with that."
Oh, God bless Taylor Swift. I think the Bears have a very good future. I think the Bears need some new direction, some new coaches, like a tough coach. Like, I mean, I'm sure their guy's a nice dude, but I feel like they knew last year he wasn't the guy, but they grew a beard on him and made him look kind of cool.
Yeah, like fit in.
But I just feel like that a player trash talking the crowd while that's all happening. That's all leadership. That is, I mean,
well, it's like our sport and any other one. All sports are changing, but the talent level now, honestly, in all sports, including our own, is unbelievable. You know, like every sport, they just keep doing things that they don't even seem like humans. Football, basketball, they're just like, what's next? There's constantly some record going down. Some new athletes putting down a record that has stood for 30 years or 40 years or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of the time we're living in.
Yeah. Yeah. What I hear recently, Michael Phelps has 0 Olympic records left. Like Michael Phelps, we watched him.
Like they're never
all those medals. Like nobody's going to beat him.
Nobody.
And, dude, they're gone. Like they've all been beaten. Right. Like it's.
But again, it's whether it's technology, they're more about the human body. They eat perfect foods. I mean, think about this. Babe Ruth was knocking home runs and hot dogs. You know what I mean? Like today's athletes don't do that. Like they take their blood type takes a certain type of nutrient. You know what I mean? Like everything is a science now.
Yeah.
They have a machine that records all their movements and figure out what makes their movements faster, better. We just keep going. Again, we have a machine now that will follow a fish around.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, like, it's just, we living in changing times, Dave. I just hope we.
You think Babe Ruth, if you could talk to him, do you think he looks at it as like, man, I wish I played now when they get played these millions, or do you think he's like, man, I loved when I played, when I rolled with the press and was just a hot mess of debauchery and nobody printed anything bad about me. I was just the babe.
Such a great time. Like, that was a great time in life. Cool dude to hang out with. You know what I mean? Like freaking, like, man, all the John Daly's are the best. And you think about it, like, here's the two. You want to be Tiger Woods or you want to be John Daly? There's a part of me that wants to be John Daly. Drink a half a gallon of whiskey and get up the next day and go out there and do pretty good. How good would he have been if he had the discipline that Tiger had? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, had a good time. And in the end, it's really all about the good time, isn't it?
There's a famous story between Tiger and Daly where John Daly was at a bar in the clubhouse, right? And Tiger was going out and whatever, and this is in practice rounds. And John's like, hey, Tiger, you come join us for a drink. And Tiger said, yeah, when I'm done work. And he went out. And this went on all day. And John's still at the bar, just smoking and drinking. And then finally Tiger comes in and it's dark and, he's been working on his game and everything. And Daly said, Tiger, what's wrong with you? You never join us for a drink. And he said, well, if I was born with half the natural talent that you have, I'd be sitting at the bar too. Which amazes me that Tiger would say that about anyone. But remember John Daly when he first came out, dude? Flowing blonde hair, just a fire-breathing dragon.
The Ric Flair.
Oh, yeah. They've aged appropriately about the same. John Daly and Ric Flair.
I don't even.
All right, Greg Hackney, thank you. We've dealt with a lot here. It's always good to have you on.
It's good to be on, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Greg Hackney. Another awkwardly honest conversation. And if you enjoyed this, please keep it around by commenting, subscribing, wherever you're listening to. If you're on Spotify, make sure you leave a review, give us a thumbs up. All of those things help us stroke the algorithm to keep this fine show coming to you each and every Wednesday. Until next time, have a very happy Halloween. Enjoy Bean. And as always, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?